to NFYI's April chapter meeting on educational empowerment. So we're just gonna introduce and talk a little bit about NFYI. So this is our leadership core. These are some of our members. I don't know if there's another slide with some of our members. So people who aren't here today, we have Marcus, Andre, and Lansing, my big brother. So they're not able to make it today, but those are also members of the leadership core. And so we can get into talking about what we do and what we're all about.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've heard of the National Foster Youth Institute. We do our Congressional Shadow Day every year in DC, where we send over 100 foster youth from across the country to DC to shadow their Congress member to kind of raise awareness. And we think that true change for the foster care system isn't going to come to fruition until underrated experts have a seat at the table, because how can you make decisions to improve the system when you don't have the people with lived experience there too? So I participated in the Congressional Shadow Day last year, and when I came back to Michigan, I was really disappointed because I had worked in the legislature and I just didn't see a lot of legislation moving. And so I knew we needed to do something. So honestly, it was me and a few other people that really came together and were we need to start a movement, and it needs to be alumni run, and we need to get people here raising voices. And so that's really what happened is Lansing was there at the Shadow Day last year, and so was Marcus, and we kind of came together and formed a group, and that's how we met Anna, and then we met Rachel. And so we've just been doing work and hosting events across the state, and then we have the first Foster Youth Shadow Day in Michigan's history in June, which I'm super excited about. So we're actually going to be sending 13 foster youth from across the state of Michigan to get trained at Michigan State, and we have some state reps coming to help us do those trainings and other organizations, and then they're going to shadow their state representatives on the 13th, followed by an advocacy luncheon. So super excited. And we're giving out an award, so pretty pumped about that.
Yeah.
Yes,
and then we also within the leadership core, we're also doing these chapter meetings every other month or so, and they just take place we hope to reach the foster youth and alumni community through these events with different kinds of workshops and different kinds of informations. For instance, this month is on educational empowerment, and so giving different sorts of resources that might empower, that will empower and inspire foster youth and serve, so we can serve as a beacon of hope in Michigan for the foster youth and alumni community.
Yeah, so for membership engagement, we do quarterly retreats. So as a leadership core, NFYI in DC actually pays for us to get together every 3 months so that we can kind of build a community of support, because this work can be really stressful. It can also trigger us a lot. So we need to come together and remember why we're here, because sometimes it's hard to remember the why when you're doing a lot of work that can be triggering. We're going to start doing monthly policy calls. So once Shadow Day is done, we're going to partner with Michigan's Children, and we're going to have policy calls. And then we have our Foster Youth Shadow Day. It's going to be in June, and then we also have bi-weekly calls with each other too, so we can stay engaged.
Okay, so introductions, I guess, more specifically. So my name is Ana Maria Sanchez Castillo. I'm from Lansing, Michigan. I was in care for about 3-ish years. I'm no longer in care. I'm an independent status student though. I joined NFYI largely just because I'm very inspired to make a change and be engaged in these conversations and in this community, and hopefully just foster and further the development of the development of our movement. It's really exciting to me, and when my brother was telling me about it when he went to DC, I was just really inspired about the work that NFYI is doing, and I was really excited to be a part of it.
My name is Michelle.
I'm a Blaven Scholar too. I didn't even talk about, I go to University of Michigan, and I'm a Blaven Scholar as well, and Miriam helped me get to this position in life. Wouldn't be here without her, by the way.
My name is Angelica. I spent 2 years in foster care, but I actually don't talk to the family that adopted me anymore. I transitioned to college alone, and they did not support me. So that's really where my passion for foster youth advocacy kicked in, was because I got involved with their college campus support group at Michigan State, and just like the Blaven Scholars have inspired her, the FAME program inspired me because they allowed me to speak at events, and I found that people were really receptive to the things that I was saying, and it made me feel like I was giving my pain a purpose, and that I didn't just go through it to go through it, like I was actually going to be able to use it to feel positive change for other people, which kind of is a gift in a way. It made me thankful for the first time in my life, but yeah, I'm just really excited to see the change that we can make together, because I think there's power in unity.
My name is Rachel Samarick. I was in care for 2 years, actually in Port Huron, which is in the thumb of Michigan, but recently, not so recently, like 3 or 4 years ago now, relocated to the Ann Arbor area and got involved in the WCC REACH program. And up until that point, I did not know of the resources that were available to former foster youth. And through getting connected with that program and as a result, other resources, I found a passion for helping other youth who have come from a similar situation. And I have become involved in the Fostering Success Michigan initiative. I'm their student ambassador, and I actually got into contact with Angelica through Carrie over there. And I'm very excited about the work that NFY is doing in Michigan. This is a youth-led movement, and that's very exciting for me. And I'm just very much so looking forward to the work that we're going to continue to do.
All right, and now we have our keynote speaker, Maddie Day. So just to introduce her a little bit, I actually met her through Blaven. I was on their webinar, their podcast series, over at Western Michigan's, like their success, I forgot the actual name.
Fostering Success Michigan.
Fostering Success Michigan. And yeah, I was on their podcast and we had a little conversation, and that's how I first met her, and I've been really inspired by her work that she does for foster youth all over. So if you wanna
Yeah, I think so. Do you want me to stand? Do I need to stand kind of where you're standing?
Yeah, you can stand like right
Okay. Wherever totally works. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Good afternoon. I am thrilled to be here, as Anna said. So Anna, I was thinking, were you also a speaker at the Michigan Teen Conference?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Anna and I go way back. A couple years ago feels like way back, and so through my former role, I was the director of Fostering Success Michigan, which continues to be a huge supporter of this work. Fostering Success Michigan is a statewide organization working to increase education outcomes for young people with experience in foster care, and my colleague Carrie Ward continues to be the director, carry on the torch. So I know many of the folks here through that, and then just have always felt really passionate about working with young people that have experienced foster care. I am now currently a consultant, which sounds fancy, and it basically just means I get to like work and support people and cheerlead and champion their work. And I do that through the Annie E. Casey Foundation's Jim Casey Youth Opportunities Initiative. So I work with other states to help them improve outcomes for young people transitioning out of foster care. So thank you guys for having me. I was sort of laughing when I was sitting down to write my talk for a couple reasons. One, written like talks are not my thing. So if you guys are ever thinking like, oh wow, she does this so well, like I really don't. This is an area where I have to really practice. Talking without a script, that is my thing. So, you know, we all have places to grow. But I did a lot of reflecting, and so the theme being education empowerment, you know, kind of was really reflecting on like, what does that mean? And in so many ways, like it encapsulates everything that I've done, the thing that I feel like I am supposed to be here for. And as I was sitting there writing or attempting to write this talk, I just kept like getting hung up, and I found myself kind of getting in an argument with myself a little bit, and I had to like take a break and really think about like, what is going on here? Why can I not speak to this thing that for me is sort of like my purpose thing, right? And what I realized is I have a really hard time with the idea of other people empowering somebody. And for me, it was like sitting there having this argument of like, what does empowerment mean? And yes, I did look up the definition and was like, I don't know if I agree with that, but I know that this is the dictionary definition. And a huge part of it was because I really feel like empowerment is something that you have to do for yourself, right? And you know, I kept thinking about how does my value of empowerment tie to education? And while I definitely believe that credentials and degrees are very important, and it really was the thing that kind of, for me, knowing that I wanted to help improve the lives of young people that experienced foster care, the click point for me was realizing that those credentials and degrees are the things that nobody can take away from you, right? No matter what we do, and by we I mean those of us who work in child welfare, we can't take that away, and we also can't give that to you. You have to earn that, and you get to keep it, right? So I was like, how does this whole empowerment thing work with the education thing? You can tell it was doing a lot of thinking in my head. And so what I realized is that for me, education was the path to finding my greatness. And that finding my greatness is this thing that I hold really deep, this thing that I have been able to draw on that empowers me, that fuels me, that I hold close. And so that's really what I wanted to talk to you about. Not to throw off your wonderful topic today. I think it's gonna come full circle. But you know, it really is this piece about owning my greatness. And so I wanna kind of share a little bit about my journey with that, and hopefully that will kind of spark some things. And I think for everybody, as we're kind of making our way through life, thinking about this thing of owning our greatness and how education can be a part of that. So several years ago, I don't know when several stops and it just becomes like a long time ago, but many years ago, I started working with Fostering Success Michigan, and part of that work was to have students that worked in our office on our staff, and we would have these meetings. We'd kind of debrief, you know, how are things going? And it became this question, there became a space where we would ask this question of, what is your greatness? And it came from my colleague, Dr. Yvonne Unruh, who helped start the Seated Scholars Program. And it was sort of this just natural thing of self-reflection. What is your greatness? What are you here to offer? What's uniquely yours, right? And I think part of it is because we ask people all the time, what are you gonna do when you grow up? What are you gonna do when you finish high school? What are you gonna do after college? What job are you looking for next, right? And there's all of this emphasis on the expectation of what you will do. And that title or that job or that space that you go to work being the definition of who you are and how you are moving in the world. And I think that there's lots of great things that you can do, you know, be a teacher, be a doctor, be a social worker like me. But I don't think that that is the end all and be all. And I think that we really have to ask ourselves to think beyond that. And that's where I really think education plays a critical role, or at least I'll say it played a critical role for me in finding my greatness. Pursuing education, I really believe that pursuing education beyond high school gives you the opportunity to try on different versions of yourself. As an undergrad, I entered as pre-med. The funny thing about that is, so let me just say, I applied as pre-med. I entered as, I don't know what's going on here. That was like truly, if they said like, what's your status? My status is, I don't know what's happening here. I came from a community where most of my friends were first generation. They were children of immigrants. I was also sort of in this hybrid of first generation plus kind of this like, we have non-traditional career paths. My parents are musicians and artists. That's not really like, you can go to school to do that, but that's not a direct path, right? And so they were like, college is gonna be great, this is good, see you in 4 years. And I went off with that really great direction, which was not a whole lot of direction. So by the time I was a junior in college, and I always remember this because I remember getting this letter, and they were like, if you do not declare a major, you will be unenrolled from college. So you need to declare a major by the end of this semester. Figure it out, basically. And so by that time, I had tried on a geography major. I tried on a sociology major. I tried on a major that the University of Washington has called Comparative History of Ideas, which meant that we read books and talked about them a lot. Kind of a philosophy, kind of just like hanging out and thinking you know a lot about the world, but you don't. I tried on an anthropology major, and I tried on a music major, which I loved, but realized that I wasn't going to quite make that my profession. I did minor in it, though, you know, so you can have some fun with some of those majors. And in the end, I had sort of tentatively landed in being a psychology major. One of the things I think is actually really, in reflection, funny about my whole path is, in undergrad, I never once took a social work class. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, why was that? How did that even happen? And I think a huge part of it was, it wasn't on my radar as something like to take. And nobody ever kind of said, hey, so you're sort of dabbling in all of these things, and like the common thread is like you like people and you like working with people and systems. Maybe try that out. But part of my blind spot was I didn't actually have people to even ask those questions to. So it wasn't until I kind of landed in psychology and was like, yeah, this kind of fits, this kind of feels right. That I actually started to get to know people, get to know professors, get to know some of the graduate students that were in this field. And they took a chance on probably somebody who looked like they were flailing at life and kind of said, well, come and, you know, try these things. And so psychology stuck, in large part, like I said, because of the people. I really learned how these folks in psychology thought. It sort of matched how I was thinking. I was interested in their research. They let me try some things, try to do research, try to do that. But what kept clicking for me is something that I wouldn't have been able to name then, but I can name now. And that was really where like I first discovered kind of this spark of what I will say is now my greatness. And that is being able to create connections that solve problems. And it was this thing for me where I was like able to sit in a class and learn about theories and learn about, you know, research studies that had happened, and then see the connection to how that could actually solve this problem. I was able to see how, you know, if we brought these people together and asked these questions, we might be able to get the answers that we needed. You know, really kind of that connection of concepts, ideas, people just gave me this thing of, yeah, this feels right. This gives me energy. And at the same time, I was looking out at my professors, the graduate students that I worked with, my fellow undergrads, and I was like, I don't want your job. So it was this really interesting thing where here I was in my senior year, like, this is the first time that I feel like this is happening for me. Things they're clicking for me, but I don't want to do this. And so people would ask this question of, what are you gonna do after college? And I was like, yeah, I still don't know, right? I knew what it felt to have that like greatness feeling, that spark feeling, but I didn't see that anywhere in a job. So you're probably thinking like, what's going on with this woman? Can't she get her act together? How many years did she go to school? So like I said, it was at the end of my senior year. I went to college on a full-ride scholarship. The money was running out. I had to wrap it up. And that was sort of the thing where I was like, okay, time's up for all of these, like, trying on these new majors and taking these fun classes. Time to wrap it up and figure out maybe not what you're gonna do, but what you're gonna do next, right? So, you know, wrapped it up, graduated, you know, kind of looked at the different options, and I truly just sort of stumbled into a case management position, just like somebody that knew somebody that was like, you might be good at this. And again, I was like, this kind of feels right. I had that like feeling of like, this kind of feels right. It kind of is like on the right track. but again, it wasn't like fully right. It was sort of stumbling through in a lot of ways. And many times over the 4 years that I was working in case management, I did foster home licensing, I did child placement, people would kind of say like, so when you were in social works like classes, didn't they ever teach you this? And it was like, I never took one of those. So I'm definitely missing the information that I really should have to do this job. And kind of just like, you know, made my way through and then finally said, all right, maybe I need to go back and I need to see what the whole like social work education thing is all about. So, you know, it was one of those things where I kind of took a leap and said, I'm going to go back to graduate school. We're going to do this on our own. We're going to pay for it. It's going to be a lot of money, but I think it's going to be worth it. And what was really interesting is that, again, it kind of gave me this opportunity to sort of try on different versions of being a social worker, which I didn't even know because, of course, I never took a social work class before. I didn't even know there were different versions of being a social worker. So I came in and I thought, hospitals, those seem pretty cool. Again, kind of thinking like, remember all those years ago that you wanted to be pre-med? Maybe there's something to that. So I went in thinking I wanted to be a hospital social worker. That's what I was gonna do. And then I thought, ooh, maybe I wanna work in addictions. Maybe I wanna work in, be a therapist. And so I sort of tried all of these things on. And then sort of as I was trying all of those things on, I had this really great opportunity to work with people to kind of see if we could pull this idea that I had off called starting a campus support program for students from foster care. And I kept thinking like I said earlier, you know, if there's one thing that we can do for young people that have experienced foster care, it's help them get an education, right? I know there's all of these things that we like to think we can do. We would love to reunify young people with their families, bring them together with their siblings, all of this stuff. And sometimes we can do that, and a lot of times we can't. But what we can do is help them, give them the support so that they can earn their degrees. They can get through high school, they can get to a community college, they can get to a 4-year degree, and hopefully beyond that, right? If we give them the support that truthfully, like, even though my family did not know how to navigate college, they gave me a lot of support. If we can do that for young people, then I think that they can have something that will be greater than maybe all of the things that we've like taken from them in this path, right? They will have this key to creating their own future, which is a very simplified version of what I think education can do, but that was sort of my thinking at the time. So I started doing this, and again, like this, there's sort of this split reality of in school I'm kind of trying on these other hats, and in my spare time in graduate school, which I think I just made up time. I truly think I just like added an extra few hours every day and made up time, but I started bringing people together, and I started bringing resources from the university together, and I started bringing people from the community to the university that had never been there. And together we started creating a program, and it was this like whole effort that took probably about 1.5 years that culminated in me standing at the end of, I think it was like June of 2010, and seeing our first group of what we called the University of Washington Champions programs, champion students completing their first year of school, and just feeling like I still don't know what I'm supposed to do, because this thing that I just did, I kind of created. There wasn't a job like that before, but I know that this is my greatness. I know that the best thing I can do is to bring people and ideas and resources together for this purpose of helping young people who are aging out of foster care, helping young people to achieve their education. And again, like this, it was sort of this detached thing because it didn't at the time really have a name. There weren't that many campus support programs. There was definitely no like statewide coordinated efforts of anything. So I was just kind of making this up, but knowing that this was my purpose. So I say all of that, and of course, like, the journey continued. You all know me. Many things have happened afterward. Now there are many campus support programs. Now there's this whole job called a campus coach. all of these things. It's amazing. I didn't do that in any way by myself. It sort of developed around me. But through this thread of knowing my greatness has been the thing that has directed me toward what I would do next. And I would just say, like, I stand up here and I always think, like, what do I do? Like I said, I'm a consultant. That's a very ambiguous sounding job. And the truth of it is, like, I don't necessarily know what I'm going to do next. I think that will probably always change and ebb and flow, but I do know what my greatness is, this connection point. And I do know that for me, college was the place that helped me find that. It was the place that helped define that and refine that for me, right? So I think it's important just to recognize that this is like a very brief story of many, many years of my life. I'm old, so I won't tell you how many. And it sounds like a really nice, neat story. And what I'm skipping over is a lot of the mess of life, because life is messy, and life is complicated, and it doesn't happen without hiccups, major hiccups. It doesn't happen without falling and getting scars and bruises and all of those things. And all of those things absolutely happened throughout this whole process. School, though, was this place that was the refuge. School was the place that I could go to and kind of dig into when the mess and the chaos and the swirl was happening outside. And that's just, I think, probably the central purpose of why I really think that education can be such a critical part to finding your greatness, because when everything else is kind of swirling, school can be a place where there are people, especially in college, and I would say particularly in Michigan, where I will be completely biased and say we have some of the best campus support programs, we have some of the best campus coaches, and there are people there who want to help you on that journey. There are people there who want to, cheer you on as you try on all these different versions of yourself, and you go through multiple majors, or you go from studying abroad to volunteering in your community and somewhere in between. There are people that can help you find that, and they'll help you figure out maybe what you want to do next. But I think the biggest thing that they can really offer is to help you find your greatness. So with that, I just want to encourage you all to ask yourself, what is your greatness? And encourage you that if you have that, if you know that, hold it close. Don't let anybody diminish that. And if you don't know what that is, try a college class. Give geography a try. I loved it for several semesters. You never know what you're gonna find, but at the very least, it can be one more step toward finding your greatness. So thank you.
Thank you again, Maddie, for having that speech. It was really perfect for this whole topic and everything. So now we're gonna bring up our panel members. This is our, educational empowerment panel. So we're gonna be discussing. I have a few questions here. We're gonna bring up Miriam Connolly, the director and a campus coach at U of M Lehman Scholars Program. My first campus We're gonna bring up Kathy. I'm sorry, we had Carrie, and so I keep getting Kathy and Carrie confused. From WCC Reach, former foster youth coordinator and campus coach. We're gonna bring up Angelica Cox, a NFYI leadership member, former foster youth, studied social relations and policy at MSU. And we're gonna bring up Rachel, another NFYI leadership core member. She studied social work at Washtenaw Community College. Alright guys, so I'm gonna get started with the questions. What do you see to be an important step in inspiring foster youth and alumni to pursue post-secondary education or trade school and or trade school? You wanna go first? Or?
Sure. So I think that one of the really important pieces in getting students from sort of like pre-college or pre-trade school or whatever that post-secondary education is addressing some of the barriers that they have in pursuing that path. And I think a big piece of that is addressing mental health, and addressing the trauma and potentially mental illnesses that have developed, and connecting youth to support programs for mental health specifically, so that they can sort of navigate their experience and their trauma and really come into post-secondary education on a stable foundation. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think mental health is a huge obstacle right now because a lot of times you get all this support when you're in the system and then you're out of the system and that support ends. But when you're fighting to get through the system, you're just fighting through it and you're not really processing your experience. And then when you really need the help because you've processed it, it's no longer there. I would say the biggest thing that I think would inspire people is by exposing these vulnerable populations to people that have done it. Because when you're in the system, like, people are stereotyping you all the time. I don't know how many times people told me, like, I couldn't go to college because there was no way I could afford it or make it happen. And I knew that I could do that, but I had that resilience internally, and most people don't. And so by exposing them to people who have overcome, I think that's inspiring and empowering on its own. And I think we can do more movements like this, or, you know, work with allies to help reach these youth so that they can see it.
Yeah, I would say echo what you both said, in addition to doing more outreach early. So I think youth that are in, you know, even upper elementary, middle, and high school, connecting them with supportive adults, mentors, so that they not only navigate sort of what would college be like, but as you said, sort of role models who've come before them to give them some ideas about what options are, what role models are.
It's great to be the last one because then all of that. And I would say that early exposure and really starting with fostering and starting with biological parents, really having those conversations early on and embedding it in the trainings that we offer. I think it's really important to be able to say, this is possible for you. And again, I think that other big critical piece is not pathologizing young people and saying that this behavior that we see in teenagers is different because you're experiencing foster care, but to really see it as something that you may naturally experience anyway, and you're experiencing trauma potentially, but again, not pathologizing it, but offering the opportunity to have those outlets to train, to think and talk about trauma while also having trainings with foster parents and talking about what's possible.
What do you find to be the largest misconception amongst foster youth about accessing higher education?
I get to go first. I'm just kidding. But I think I'll start with us. For us being at the University of Michigan, is that you cannot go to a tier 1 college, that you can't get into college, and then once you're there, that you do not belong there. So just having the understanding that the college process is different, it's holistic, and it doesn't mean that you know, some of our students don't come in with a major GPA or major ACT, SAT score, but they can still go to college.
Yeah, I would say maybe a misconception would be thinking that not setting their sights high enough, that I don't have what it takes to go to a selective school, or that I didn't have the ACT score. So letting them see that there's so many options. Obviously community college is a great one. Being able to let them know that there's always a place to start, and you don't have to have the best ACT score. Just start somewhere, and we can start you somewhere, and setting their sights high.
Yeah, there's so many things I could say on this issue, but just kind of echoing what they're saying. We work with a lot of foster youth. I actually did foster club too, so I spoke across the country, and one thing I heard a lot of people say is, I'm not smart enough. Like, I'm not good enough to go to college. Like, ACT score was really low because they bounced around from school to school, and like they didn't have that stability to help nurture their education, and so they just don't believe in themselves enough, or they think that maybe college isn't affordable, or because they don't have parents like they can't do it. And sometimes when they do graduate from high school, they still have siblings like that are still in the system that they want to stay back and support. So like just letting them know that it is possible and showing them maybe different avenues in which they can achieve that. Like if it's going to community college, you can stay close to home, so you can be around your family and you know that it is affordable and you can make it happen. Yeah, it's just the misconception of not believing in yourself enough. We just need to change the stereotypes. So.
I feel like I may be beating a dead horse, but I do think that the biggest misconception amongst foster youth about post-secondary education is that it's not attainable. And that for a variety of reasons, whether it be test scores or GPA or just feeling like you have limited options within your community. I think that folks are maybe not cognizant of all of the opportunities that are available. Even in, I put the resource folder together for today's meeting, and just going through Fostering Success Michigan's website and all of their educational resources, there are so many pots of money. There are so many support programs. There are so many networks to access for people of this particular background to access post-secondary education. And when you get there, even outside of campus support programs like REACH or Believe-Ins, or the Seed to Scholars program, there are community-based organizations, such as in Washtenaw County, there's Our House, which is specifically dedicated to helping youth who have transitioned out of the foster care system to be successful in their life holistically. So I really do think that this thought process of like, I can't attain this, needs to be changed in order for foster youth to really become the people that they can be, and that it is possible.
I want to piggyback off of that too, because I have some thoughts on it as well. Yeah, like I was a I really played into the whole, like, I don't think it's possible for me. I had a lot of people who were kind of telling me, you know, like, where are you going to get the money to go to school? You want to go to U of M, how are you going to find the money to go to U of M, you know, all of these different things. So it's like, when you're constantly not seeing yourself in those positions, it constantly kind of like reinforces this negative narrative that you aren't going to be able to attain that. But I think it's like giving these resources, because like, as Rachel said, there's so many resources out there, and there's so many people who are willing to connect you to them. It's about like making that connection. And I really hope that like through NFYI and through the work that we're doing, that we're able to, you know, give these resources, like make that connection stronger, and let youth know like these are options for you. There's so many resources that we can try to connect you to support you through that process. Because it's like, it's a possibility. Like the fact that I'm here says like it's a possibility. Okay, so what educational resource have you found to be the most often overlooked for current foster youth and for alumni?
I really do think it boils down to people, and that there are specific people in the community and at programs that understand the needs and the experience, maybe not firsthand obviously, but really are there. They're dedicated professionals to help foster youth navigate post-secondary education. And I think that, you know, it's great for us to have meetings like this, and it's great for the WCC REACH program to exist and for Kathy to work there. But I think that there's this step that needs to be made, to echo Anna, the connection needs to be made. And to utilize these supports that are there specifically to ensure your success. So yeah, I would just say utilization of those people that are there specifically for you.
Yeah, I actually wrote my senior seminar thesis at James Madison College about education disparities for foster youth in Michigan, and Maddie actually interviewed you. I don't know if you remember that. But I interviewed the campus coach there for the support program, and I had asked her how many people indicated on the FAFSA that, you know, they were former foster youth. And at Michigan State, it was like 403 at the time, but only like less than 30 were engaged in the support program. And I know that that program really helped me graduate. There was a time I didn't have health care and I was absolutely freaking out. And I just called my campus coach and she was able to find money to pay for my health care all throughout college. So I'm sitting there freaking out going, I don't know if I can get through this. I don't know if I can make it through college. And all I did was make a phone call to somebody that was dedicated to help people get through college. And it really just changed everything like that. And so I think part of the reason people aren't getting engaged in those programs is they're not really conscious of like what they can really do. They're more so like, I'm finally away, I've broken free of this past and I want to redefine myself and I don't want to be known as a former foster youth anymore. I want to be normal. But like really, what is normal? So I'm not normal, I don't know. But like, yeah, so just kind of letting people know what these programs can do for them, because I think they really can impact somebody's educational trajectory. But yeah, they just kind of need to see what can be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think with education and child welfare and campuses, we all used to be very siloed until obviously Fostering Success Michigan. That whole supportive pipeline is what helped us all start to have these discussions about, oh, I can do that, and a lot more of this warm handoff so that we are aware of what's available in our communities. And as Rachel said, although there's a campus support program at those campuses, there's many hidden resources behind the scenes that many of you might not even know. So oftentimes there's foundation scholarships available that are hidden, that aren't even advertised. There's emergency funds. So the goal is to keep these conversations alive, and as you guys said, the visibility. These wonderful leaders here being able to be bold enough to stand out and be inspiring to youth, but also to make sure people are aware of in our community. We all know what the resources are because we do the work. We want the other folks that aren't connected to us to also be aware so they can spread the word.
And I agree with all of those things. I think the crux of it is social capital, right? So having those folks in your corner, having individuals who are your supportive adults, whether it's your school counselor, is it your foster parent, your biological parent, educating those folks about campus-based support programs, because I can remember being a foster care specialist and having no idea that the Seed of Scholars program even existed, and my work was to work with adolescents. So there's a huge disconnect between that training that goes on within the child welfare system and being able to bridge those gaps. So if we can pull all of those folks together and not see them as siloed, not see them as separate, but see them as part of the social capital that needs to be an automatic for a person who's experiencing foster care to start building that social capital while they're in care, and then utilizing that social capital to offer them options, whether it's college or whether it's a trade school, but really talking about what is it that they can do next, what is their superpower, what is their gift.
And if I can, I'm just gonna follow up on everything that everyone said, and I think that the struggle for youth in particular is sometimes asking for help and reaching out, and even for me personally, I'm the kind of person who really wants to know all that there is before I engage, and I've found that through my experience, you have to start somewhere. You can't know the full picture. You have to be able to ask someone, like, hey, like, this is what I need. Do you know of anyone who can help me? Can you or anyone you know connect me to these things? And I think that just being open to having that conversation and being connected to other people is really important in pursuing these things.
Yeah, on that note, I can't agree with her more. The reason I asked for help to my college campus support program was when I hit rock bottom. And I had seen a flyer in my mailbox at one point, and that was 4 months prior, but I had just hit rock bottom in college and I didn't think I could keep going. But I could have easily just completely walked away. But after I asked for help and somebody was kind enough to help me, it showed me that there is power in being able to ask, because the worst someone can say is no. But yeah, I kind of agree with Rachel. I think a lot of people are in that boat where they're just scared.
Yeah, that has been a big thing for me. Like, you can ask my campus coach, her name is Robin, at Blaven, and she's always just like, why haven't you asked me? Like, I'll like come in for our campus coach meetings, and I'll be like, tell her all the stuff that's going on, and then all these things that are stressing me out. She's like, okay, first of all, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. Let me give you this person's email. Let me put you in contact with this person. Like, there's answers and like solutions. It's just about like just asking, and that has been like a big thing for me. Like, I don't have to kind of, I think it's like being used to figuring everything out on your own, like growing up, and like that the independence that comes from that, and that kind of self-sufficiency you learn in certain scenarios, and then coming to college, and like there's so many people who want to help you, but you're like not even really sure. You don't really have that skill of like knowing how to do that. So what do you see to be the most important step in inspiring more foster youth and alumni to pursue post-secondary education and or trade school? Does Mary or whoever wants to start can start?
Did we already do that question? Was that
Did
the
we?
first one? I think we did that one, yeah.
Oh, okay. Getting mixed up. Okay, I got that mixed up with this one. In your experience, what has been, did I ask this one too? Has been the most important impact? Not yet? Okay. In your experience, what has been the most important impact to support former foster youth and alumni as, like, in your guys' experience? Yeah, that question was worded weird. Should I say it again?
Yes.
Okay. In your experience, what has been the most impactful support what has been the most impactful support you have found for foster youth and alumni, or like you have received as foster youth?
Okay. Are you sure?
I'll go
excited.
on.
Okay.
Short-term memory loss. While it's still here. So I think that partnering with the student, not telling the student what to do, how to do it. You're partnering with them. You're not doing it for. We say we don't do it for. We don't do it to. We do it with. That's been so impactful because it has such a long and wide and sustainable reach. Having patience and making sure that you're individualizing the student. So one of our students was out for 3 years and had stopped out of college. And when that student came back, we worked together, and that was so important to not put that student in sort of the proverbial box and say, like, this is the time frame you have to finish, but to find the resources with the student so that they can finish that degree, and they did, and it was amazing. But going at their own pace and making sure that we were individualizing their coaching and the work that we did together so that it fit them. And it was, I think that was so much more meaningful and impactful. And it's also a great, she told her story to the other students, and that's another sort of sacred thing, to be able to have your own story and be able to share it. And that was so important for other folks who are in that stressful situation and considering stopping out, or considering, like, I have to do it this way to be able to move forward.
Yeah, I think the biggest impact in terms of where I'm at Washington Community College is working for an organization maybe where leadership really supports creative or innovative partnering. So campuses and communities, campuses and nonprofits, being able to say, hey, these are barriers, these are needs, how do we better solve these issues? And so being able to solve what some of the biggest barriers are that we see, obviously housing instability, mental health. We've been able to do some cool partnering with local nonprofits and fill gaps that were once there. So I think that's had a huge impact. I would say also partnering with our 4-year folks, seeing two youth come from community college and now going to University of Michigan, them thinking that was never an option, and now seeing them just soar higher, being able to achieve something not only because of their hard work, but because of the positive partnerships that we've had just with our neighbors, our other neighbors in post-secondary.
And being able to have scholars who were struggling or having a hard time at University of Michigan, partnering with Kathy and Reach to have them do work there, co-coach, and then come back through a pipeline. that's been pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
definitely.
I would say the Fostering Futures Scholarship. One thing I love about that scholarship is I think it's still the only scholarship in the entire country that doesn't have an age restriction. So if you were in foster care after the age of 13, you get $3,000 every year for 5 years. And it came out when I was a junior in college. So I got my last 2 years of college for free. Because at Michigan State, being independent, I still had to pay like $1,800 a year. But then getting my first 2 years for free, I actually spent my last semester in DC interning at Voice for Adoption because I had the flexibility in my financial aid package and potential debt to like do a life-changing opportunity where I actually got to go to DC and work on the family's first legislation and like go to Capitol Hill and advocate for it. So that was one of the most impactful probably moments of my entire college career, and Fostering Futures helped with that. So
What was the name of that program?
Fostering Futures.
Fostering Futures. So there's no age limit.
Mm-mm.
Oh,
And it's just a one-page form. They'll just like, you have to write down where you were in foster care, like what county, and then they'll contact that county and verify. And as long as you can prove that you were there, you get it.
And where might we go to find more information?
We do have it in our resource packet.
Got it.
You could also
Cool.
just
Yeah. We're gonna look in the resource packet.
you can also just email us. So
Sorry,
we're happy to
just
connect you
parts
guys.
Okay.
No worries. In terms of what's been most impactful for me, I think money has been really useful in navigating my post-secondary career and outside of that. So I think that the multitude of scholarships and programs that are available, like Fostering Futures, like the Tuition Incentive Program, YAT, Our House offers some housing scholarships. There's emergency funds. And there are so many more that are, again, included in the resource packet and on the Fostering Success Michigan website. But being able to have my necessities paid for so that I could pursue these ambitions of mine has been really, really helpful. But I would also echo Miriam and Kathy and say that you can't have one without the other. So I could have money and I could have these necessities taken care of, but without the support from the programs and from the people that I was connected with, I wouldn't have been able to be guided to where I am today.
Yeah, echoing up of that, it's like having that support, like having that financial stability, which is something that's like might be foreign. For me, it was like foreign prior to coming to U of M. Having that financial stability, and then on top of that, just like the like academic support, the professional development support, like all of like life skills support, like all of these different things that I didn't really prepare or have any knowledge of before coming to college. So it's like once you're here, you're like, oh my goodness. So how are you able to like really focus on your education when you're still learning how to like survive and still learning how to thrive? But having that support system, having that like financial stability and security, like it really allows you to to feel like you can thrive and like feel like you can focus on, you know, your pursuits and those sorts of things. So yeah, okay. Sorry, I keep like I'm on this panel.
No, your input is valuable. We want to hear it.
Okay, this is the last question though. So and I'm really nervous that I keep mixing these up. What is the one thing that you would like to see change in terms of access to, did I ask this?
No.
Okay, great. In terms of access to education for foster youth and alumni, and how do you think that change can be made? Let me say it again.
Can I start this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so I talked about Fostering Futures and how that scholarship was super awesome. Well, that's actually our legislative ask for Shadow Day this year, is expanding that to include skilled trades. Yeah, right? Yeah, so it doesn't matter, you know, if you're getting a 4-year degree or you're getting, you know, a skilled, like you're able to go into skilled trades, just anything that's going to help you further yourself in life so that you're not succumbing to poor life outcomes, I think is really important for this population because they are so vulnerable, because they've been through so much. So I would love to see our scholarships expand to allow more access and support for this population.
Yeah, I would say expanding the ages as well. So looking at even the TIP scholarship, looking at ETV. So many youth, as you said, maybe when they graduated high school, there's a lot of things in their life and they weren't able to start right away. And so many of them, I think the average age of community college students is 26. So many of them come really ready to learn and work at a much older age. So finding a way to continue to expand those ages for people to access the funding even later.
So much unicorn ideas. So one thing that comes to mind is really thinking about, we don't have an upper age limit in our program. You can be 99 and be a Believing Scholar. But I think about the way that students have to access their funding, and I think about sort of the tax repercussions that we don't think about. These are independent students, and yet they may end up with tax bills. So those are two things that I would love to change. But I'm going to go to something that's more out of that's sort of very big federal stuff that's out of my hands for the IRS. You gotta pay your taxes, death and taxes. So what I would say is, I really, in coming from the world of child welfare, I really think that the work needs to be done on the level of foster home licensing, having adequate, sufficient, well-trained, and well-supported foster parents. All of those things, to me, it's kind of like Maddie talked about, like you can see that how, if we change this area, how can we then reduce the number of placement changes, reduce the number of the experience of high-level trauma. So we're really hitting it on that level, and we're talking about long-term support and longevity in foster parenting. And so if I could change those things, I would change it, and I have a litany of ideas, so I won't jump into how we could do that, but really starting with legislation and then trickling it down to the local units and departments and counties.
I think that the mentality surrounding pursuing post-secondary education amongst foster youth really needs to change a little bit. I think that there are sort of two types of people that I've come across. There are the folks who want an education, well, three, I suppose. They're the folks that want the education but don't feel that they're deserving of it or can't attain it. And then there are the folks who are pursuing this in spite of their circumstances and sort of, as Angelica mentioned earlier, separating themselves from the foster youth identity. And sort of that mentality surrounding themselves and their experience combined with their academic future. So I would really like to see, and I suppose I don't have the answer to the second part of the question of how we're going to address this thing, but I do think that having forums like this and having sort of accessibility to groups of alumni, such as Angelica, Anna, and myself, just to connect with someone who's been through it and is at a point of success, or like I'd like to think that I'm successful, but and connecting their experience to what their path might look like, if that makes sense.
All right, so we're at the end of our panel. Thank you guys. Okay, thank you again to all of our guests, all of our speakers. We're gonna go into the resource walkthrough now. So we have a wealth of information. We're kind of really running short on time, so
It'll be very quick.
yeah. So I wanted to first talk about campus support programs. Like we've been discussing that a lot, but it's been like, for me, like in my experience, I guess I would just say it's been like one of the most impactful things for me. Just like a little quick anecdote since we're already out of time. Like when I first moved out of my foster home, 17 years old, I moved out before, like I moved out in a kind of really rough situation. I didn't have anywhere to live. I was staying with friends, finishing off high school and getting ready to go to U of M and not really having anywhere to live or any type of thing at all to prepare myself for college. Didn't even have like bed sheets and like different things you need for a dorm and things like that. But actually was kind of like my caseworker, just circumstance. I ended up having someone who's like mentored me and helped me get in contact with Blaven, and she contacted Miriam, and they were able to find me like emergency funds to get me to UMich early, and so I had somewhere to stay, didn't have to keep couch surfing. They got me money so I can like get food and clothes and like different things I needed for my dorm. And then on top of that, then I was able to start thinking about like transitioning into adulthood and getting different things I needed for that, and then preparing for school. And so like that was just a huge, like I don't know where I would be without those resources essentially, just because like that was like a huge thing bridging me into university, like and so yeah, I guess another big thank you for Miriam for that, because she was like the person who guided me through that. I was just telling them about how you helped me get to U of M in the first place. So yeah, so that's like a little anecdote about Blaven. I've also done a lot more different things with Blaven. It's kind of started off my whole like foster youth advocacy through Blaven this last summer. So yeah, and then here's a lot of the different programs. These are just the ones within Michigan. There's 13 within Michigan. And then here's a little bit about them. We've kind of talked about them a lot, but there's like mentoring, coaching. The community aspect has been really big for me too, because it's like whenever I go into like a Blaven event, it's like this unspoken thing that these people kind of like understand something about you, if that makes sense, that like maybe your other peers might not understand. Like you don't even have to talk about it. You don't even have to say like, oh, like, how long were you in care? Like, what was that? Like, blah, blah, blah. You just know, you just kind of know, like, these people get that kind of aspect about you that other people might not get. So, and then there's also just a plethora of things that comes with having that sort of community as well. Just people to study with, people to discuss majors with, and people who might have, like, more information about different majors with. So that sort of thing. And this is some Blaven scholars. This is my freshman year. I was a little funny baby. Yeah, and then so connections to opportunities and resources on campus. So like Blaven particularly, I don't know like how it works at every single program, but like we have liaisons in different departments, like financial aid, CAPS, the psychology. CAPS is our counseling service here at U of M. So that's been very impactful, because like if I need to have a meet, like if I'm having like mental health issues and I'm having that type of issue, it's kind of hard to get into the regular CAPS, so we can get in directly through like a liaison, like Blaven affiliated CAPS or psychology per psychologist. And then we also have life skill conferences. Campus support programs have these life skill conferences that capitalize off of the different areas of wellness, the 7 dimensions of wellness. Seven domains. I said dimensions.
That's okay.
Of wellness, and those just kind of like make sure you're developing like as a person, like not just focusing just on academics, but like holistically. Yeah, so that's some information more about campus support programs. Here are the campus support programs. The states that have them, the states that have like some schools have tuition waiving abilities, I guess. And then I got this from Fostering Success Michigan, by the way, all of the information. And then here's a list. This is like on the drive. This is in the packet. I just wanted to run through it in the circumstance that there were fostering youth here. So yeah, here are the programs all across the state, 13. And then in the packet we also have tools and guidebooks. So like, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. So in researching all of these resources, we sort of broke them down into different buckets, I suppose, or areas. And for the tools and guidebooks, they're a variety. There are cost calculators, the financial aid toolkit. There are like Affording College in Michigan, which they just came out with and is included in the packet, and Mapping Your Future. So it's sort of like checklists, almost like guided checklists of what you need to be able to access higher education.
And then we also have some information about affording college as foster youth and alumni in that packet as well. Some information about FAFSA and different scholarships across the state that are available to youth as well. And then also like various scholarships that are like organizations, I suppose.
Mhm.
I suppose they are. So here are some of those. More of those. TIP, YIT, big ones, Casey Family Scholar Program, very big ones as well that are included in the documents, and also like links to those platforms as well. More.
Yeah, there are
There's a lot of money.
There's a lot of money.
Wanted to like really play on the fact that there are like you can be financially stable at university, at college. Like these are lot of options. And then other resources available on the drive. So we have like FSM's College App Toolkit, 4 Steps to College, how to apply to college, things like that for high school students and pre-college students. Then some resources for college students as well. And these are like links to different like websites that are on our Google Drive as well, and that are going to be available to like everybody.
I would say that as we're walking through this, it made a lot more sense for us to sort of give you documents that are like at a glimpse of what we have available electronically. So if you wanted access to this, all you would need to do is email us and we can do that.
Yeah, I think a big thing about like what we have learned through NFYI, like starting this little baby movement out, is like it's really important to collaborate and to utilize resources that are like already available to youth. So we're just trying to make these things like, I guess, like more accessible or like available in like a collective kind of format. And then general resources that we have on there as well, like homework tips, just like surviving college tips as well, like different things that Rachel had put together. And then like educational resources for grad students as well. And these are all links for youth, alumni, everyone to go to. We talked a little bit about Foster Day, about Shadow Day originally.
Do you want me to come up and talk more?
Yes.
I should just say it. Like, it's our big thing. It's like our whole thing.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Okay, so our community partners are Michigan's Children and Fostering Success Michigan. And then we have a sponsor from the Michigan College Access Network. So MCAN is going to be our sponsor. So I'm super excited about it. So everybody's going to arrive on June 12th. Our first training is the day in the life of a state representative, and we're going to find an actual state representative to come lead that. Right now I'm reaching out to former minority leader Sam Singh because he's my former boss. So I was like, hey, I know you don't work there anymore, but that'd be really cool for you to come back. And then Fostering Success Michigan and Michigan's Children is going to lead a joint training on fostering futures and the child welfare layout in Michigan. So all of our participants kind of have a background of what the layout is, and then we're going to do a strategic sharing training. And then MCAN actually sponsored a dinner for us to so that all the participants can meet their state representative before they even shadow them. So we're going to go downtown, and it's going to be like a dinner of like 30 people. And it's going to be a great way for us to kind of increase our visibility and have more of an opportunity to share our stories. And then we're going to do the shadow the next day. So they're going to shadow their state rep or senator for 2 hours. And then we have our legislative luncheon. And so Maddie's our keynote speaker for that. And we're going to have a panel. And then afterwards, we're giving an award out to a champion in the state who's kind of led this movement. And the idea is that we do this super well, we create visibility, we kind of retain some of those people and they join our movement, and then next year we make it bigger and better. So
And I think it's also just what's really cool to me is like putting these like foster youth and alumni into the positions where they're like being a part of this process, where they're like, I have that, you know, I have that ability to step foot in these spaces and to make myself known in these spaces and to talk about things that are important to me and my experiences. And yeah, I think it's really empowering, that type of representation and that type of I guess visibility and advocacy that they're learning to do on their as well. That, and it's also like there's a lot, but it's also like professional developing too as well, like learning how to be in those spaces, learning how to have like professional dinners and just all of that as well.
Yeah, I would say one thing that why 2019 is the best year to do this, and you probably already know this, but like over half of the like state reps are freshmen, and then 75% of the senators are freshmen. So, and then we have a new governor. So it's the perfect time for us to start a movement, because a lot of times I think people really believe in helping this population, but they're just not educated on it. And we can change that. And they'll remember the stories. If we bring the facts with us, but we bring the face to like the statistics, it really brings things to life, and people will remember that. So we want to leave like a long-lasting impact on their hearts so that they can help us and kids that come into the system after us. So.
Yeah. All right, so that's the end. Any questions about NFI or anything? No? All right, well, thank you.
Good question.
Yeah.
How do you guys get more youth at campuses involved in stuff you're doing? So you guys obviously are natural born leaders that have this, hungry for policy change, which is awesome. But I think there's an opportunity to get more youth engaged, and I think from the professional standpoint, it's hard. So how do you guys, how could we help support you guys to get more youth involved?
So I sent out the application for Shadow Day to like 15 people, and then it started being shared everywhere, like even high schools were sharing it, which was really cool to see, because we were taking screenshots and sending it in our group chat. We were like, is this real life? Like, is this happening? So just kind of helping us spread the word, because we have participants that don't have a college education. So we have like different representation, but we just need to access those populations, and we just don't have the visibility yet.
And it's also just like it's also just like a difficult thing to do in the first place, like getting, as we can say, like getting youth to these types of like meetings in the first place. My voice is doing a weird thing. Yeah, so getting them to these places, and like, okay, like we contact however many people, but like, are they able to actually bring youth here? Are these youth like in the position to actually come to these sorts of events? So I think like live streaming is going to be like a really cool new thing that we do as well, to put this information out there like to the masses. And yeah, I think we just really need to just keep having these sorts of meetings and just like letting our name get out there. Like this is only our second meeting, like getting our name out there stronger, and showing that we're doing the Shadow Day. We're attending different conferences, like so youth can see us, alumni can see us, and participate as well. We really do want more participation in like the leadership core too, and in just NFII membership as a whole, getting more youth as part of like to be members as well. So
we're speaking at the FSM Policy Conference, or we're doing a strategic sharing section, but please like us on Facebook. That's how you know when all of these things are happening. Yeah, cool. Did you have a question?
Yes, I was going to ask, do you have enough participants for the Shadow Day, or are you still searching for participants?
So right now we have 12, and that's exactly what we need, but someone's going to fall off. Like, I'm a professional recruiter, so I know that if I have 12 people, 10 will show up. So if you have anyone in mind that you think could be like a substitution if something happens, by all means, we want to have as many people at Shadow Day as we possibly can.
And what's the age range?
18 to 30.
I think like the difficulty with this event and like starting off is like we wanted to have like 50 people, like we would have like 50 youth alumni if we could, but it's just like starting off this organization and like realistically putting all of that together like as like a baby little organization. That's something like we're gonna progressively build the amount of youth or the amount of alumni that we're gonna be able to bring to this event, and that we're gonna be able to like support throughout that event. But we just want to start off in a way that like it's like foundationally like sustainable and strong, moving forward.
We grow too fast, we're gonna disappear. So basically, we know that.
I was gonna ask a plan about strategy, and then you mentioned that you were doing, is that Marcus Batson? down
Yeah,
there?
you know Marcus?
I try to know everybody, I'm not right there, but, but I heard you say that you were doing a strategic sharing session at an upcoming event. What does that encompass?
So we kind of educate people on what strategic sharing is and how to make sure that you and your audience are safe when you share your story, because a lot of foster youth, they try to advocate, but they're so excited that someone's listening to them and their voice is heard that they just say everything.
Got it.
And
Or
some,
they're so like emotional and
Yeah.
caught up in like the emotion of like telling this story that they might give away, or not give away, they might like say more than they really meant to, and that puts them in like a very, really like not a great situation too.
yeah, so we have an activity in there, and it's actually something I adopted from Foster Club, so I'm going to give credit to them right now, but it's the stoplight activity. So you read off statements, and green light means you can say it in front of anybody, yellow light means maybe proceed with caution depending on who your audience is, and the red light is like stop, full steam ahead, unless it's like your family or really close friend. And so we'll like read off statements, and it'll be like one of them is I didn't wear deodorant today. It's like it's kind of yellow, like it's, you know, and then it gets more into I have a foster sister, making sure you're protecting the people that are a part of your journey, and then having a discussion that's very interactive, and then we talk about escape hatches. At the end, like what do you do if you are stuck in a situation where you are emotionally vulnerable and you're already in front of an audience? How do you navigate out of that?
And I think it's also like just even like thinking about it too, because like with any type of story or conversation you're gonna have, like just thinking like intentionally, like if I'm ever in that position, how would I want to tell my story? Or like instead of like just being in that situation and just having to like, or not having, but like telling that story and not really preparing yourself in any sort of way, that can just have like it might just have like negative repercussions for the individual. So it's just like getting that kind of thought process moving of like just thinking about what you might be comfortable saying in the first place, what might be more what might harm you in the first place, like just getting that thought process going before youth or alumni are in that position.
So then, along the lines of strategy, is there, currently has there been any energy or thought given to a strategic plan for NYFI expansion and engagement?
We're creating a more like, we have to sit down with our director. She's flying in from DC. We have a retreat at the end of this month, and part of that discussion is figuring out what that's going to look like, because we know with Shadow Day coming up, we're going to have people that are going to want to join us, and we need to kind of know where we're going from there. So the plan is to have that all in place, but we need to sit down as a group and a community and kind of create that together.
Me again. Hello. And as a part of my answer to this question, and to round back on Kathy's initial question, like what can professionals do, I think it's very important to understand that we're still in our infancy stage, and we're putting this structure together. And I think that it's really important for us to have community partners and to have people who are interested reach out to us and say, hey, I was wondering if you were thinking about this, these are my thoughts, and then going from there. I think it's also very important for youth, if they're interested, to just reach out. And we would be able to provide answers or feedback for anything.
But we do have goals as far as like how many people we want to add to our leadership core. We have added Rachel just not really recently, but like that she was a part of our goal.
We can only have 10. We can only have 10 leadership core members.
That's kind of like what we decided.
Like the worker bees, because LA tried it. It didn't work when they expanded past that, because too many passionate voices, like it just can kind of be a mess. So we're going to have members that come to our events that are the people that show up, that are engaged, that can have speaking opportunities and things like that. But the leadership core, those are going to be the people that are planning those events, that are a part of Shadow Day. And so we've also talked, maybe we only do 1-year terms in the leadership core, and then we have a discussion like every year, like about terms limits, so that we have room for new leaders to come in. But that's just an idea. We're not there yet.
Last question. I mean, I have no time to ask you. So if there are organizations, for example, like a MDHHS, MYOI, right? Like in Flint, we have that program, and they were interested, or their coordinator was interested in having someone to do a talk similar to this, or meeting during one of their monthly meetings. Is that something that in this infancy you have the capacity for? And even if not, what might be the best way for someone like me, who is from the city of Flint and works to connect people in the community, to connect others to you and to this initiative?
So as for the first question, just give us a heads up because we can typically make it work if we have enough notice. Like we have a member, Marcus, he is in Flint. So yeah, Marcus is there. So like we might be like, okay, you reach out to us, who's the closest person to that area that could do it? And so if we have enough notice, we can make that work because we all have jobs or in school.
And we are also trying to do this like traveling sort of thing where we go to different areas and have a meeting so that we're reaching these different populations and like we can engage in person in different areas around the state. So like our last meeting was in Lansing and now we're here, then we're going to
We're gonna go to Detroit this summer.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a picnic there. So the goal is each quarter to do like a meeting. So we did the Power of Your Voice was in January. This is educational empowerment. And we're gonna find like a rotation that we can use every year. And then in between we'll do those monthly policy calls so we can keep people engaged. And then if we make Shadow Day bigger, maybe we can have people come back and help lead the people next year because they did it the year before.
You sure you don't have any more questions?
I'm glad to become a member. I got work about it, I'm sorry.
So, we, honestly, it's just a matter of reaching out, and Facebook, email. I think we have a Twitter and Instagram, but it's not functional yet. So the tried and true are reach out on Facebook, email us, someone will get into contact.
Yeah, and we always say that if somebody wants to join, we have our like these calls where we like what's the video call we do every 2 weeks?
It's like Hangouts, Google Hangouts.
Yeah, Google Hangouts. So we do that. So if somebody wants to join, we have them come to our Google Hangouts call and we kind of like introduce who we are and they get to know everybody because we can't bring somebody new in without getting approval from everybody that's already there. Because we don't want to trigger our leadership core by just like having one person just bringing someone in. We have to be a community, we have to work together, we're a family.
And then as far as membership goes, like that's just like you want to join, like our page, we'll connect with you, we'll try to get you out.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's room for just really the outreach and recruitment that we all do within our different campus-based support programs for this to be almost a separate entity or a partnership in which we can say part of what we would love to share with your folks when we go to Flint or when we go to other places is this group that you can become a part of or who can speak from experience.
That's true.
Yeah, I've talked to like group foster care homes too, and I'm like, what happens when people age out and they're like, so all your support's just gone. So if you don't go to college, like who do you rely on? And I want the leadership core or just NFY, like our movement, to be something that people look to and they're like, there's a safe space for you. So no matter, there's a community of people like you. You're not on your own.
And it's like if you want to be a part of that advocacy too, because I through Blaven I know a lot of like former foster youth as well, and it's like just getting in contact with the people who want to be a part of like the advocacy aspect, and like people are really busy, people have things to do, but it's like some people might want to like be a part of this aspect as well. So yeah, that is a really good idea, like just getting more stronger partnerships with campus support program.
Any
Let
other
us
questions?
know if you have a question. It's okay. That's what we're here for. You share your
We're gonna cultivate
positive.
questions.
Send an email.
Yeah, do that. That's a good
Answer. On page 2.
Page 2 question. We love it. We love it.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, this
Thank
is
you.
great.
Yeah, please like it. Share it with all your friends.
All right.
Wow.